It's Delaware, Thursday, August 8th. I'm Peter MacArthur, and a good day to check in on the job market like we do periodically with Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing in Newark. Chris, first of all, good morning. Thanks for coming on, as always.
Good morning. It's always fun to be on the show.
Let me tell you something. There is some crazy stuff going on in the aftermath of this jobs report. You know, we've had so many instances, it occurs to me, of past months where the projection was far lower than the jobs created, right? The coin turns this time, and everyone's kind of freaking out. What is your interpretation of that jobs report, Chris?
Well, I have to tell you, the job story clearly has changed. It's simply put, it's an environment where there's much less aggressive hiring. But I want to put out two stats that kind of set the tone. The first is 5.69%. That's where unemployment has been long-term over an average, and I think that's over many years. Mm-hmm. Last year, we were at 3.5%, which is, artificially low, if you'll allow.
Yeah.
But clearly, there's a change, and we've had just an incredible run, Pete, of 36 months of some of the strongest job creation. And we're entering this, you're right, it is a weird period, but the real question, is it a blip or a trend? And I think that really does matter. Another thing is the last 5 months, each jobs report has been restated a little lower. So June, not a bad month at 206,000 jobs. Well, it was restated to 176,000. And of course, what everybody's kind of commenting on is July at 114,000. What I think is really interesting, Pete, as I dug into it, is although unemployment in the country went up to 4.3%, it really went up because so many individuals decided to re-enter the job market and get back to looking for work. See, there's kind of a half-full kind of view to that means that many people think it's an opportunity to secure work, to get a little bit more in their wages, to find what they're looking for. So it's all how you kind of look at it. But we're clearly at a spot where, well, it's a very concentrated job market. And it's getting narrower and narrower in primarily government, healthcare, and hospitality. And healthcare and hospitality are still recovering from job loss of the pandemic. The government I can't speak to. It's just a current trend where there's much more hiring in that. So, if that's not your niche or your industry, then you're probably seeing some significant softening. Yeah.
Is the Delaware jobs landscape, is that kind of holding along the same trends that you see maybe on a day-to-day basis, Chris?
It's a little bit better than national, but it did go up from 3.9% to 4%. What is interesting, what I was able to see is that retail, transportation, e-commerce, and then IT are down, which I think is really interesting because we think of IT and big tech as these just job-creating machines. But there's just it's just a smoothing out of post-pandemic in so many ways. Those firms perhaps overhired or certainly hired very robustly, and they're just slowing that down in many cases, unwinding it a bit. Another cool thing, we're a state of 1 million people, but we created 8,000 more jobs than we had last year. And that just kind of, I thought was a cool stat because, that's no small feat in a state with 1 million people.
No, not at all. Points to some nice numbers there. We've talked about this before, the fact that, this jobs picture today is far different than when we looked at 4 or 5 decades ago. And a lot of people will go through maybe 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 careers over the course of their work years as we work not only longer, but also differently than we used to. So if someone's listening right now and they find themselves, Chris, kind of at that crossroads, right? Maybe they're about to, maybe it's their choice, maybe it's not their choice, to embark on a new career. Do you have any kind of words of wisdom or insight to lend to that process?
I do. Probably have a lot to say. And what I would say is this is for radio, right? So I'm simplifying. But if any of this resonates, please feel free to reach out to me. We'll make sure my contact information is available, or make sure somebody at Placers can help you. But I think this is really an important topic because a 40-year career is most likely a 60-year career. we're not always going to focus on that big career job where we're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week trying to get ahead. There are times where people need to pause. They need to work part-time, even take a break. There are times where folks are rethinking their career and they're going to go do that cause job where they work for a not-for-profit. Well, all of this, I find, is people tend to focus on the bottom line of finding the job, when I really think there's 5 questions that you can pulse on when you're at a career crossroads. So kind of bring them to life, and feel free to ask if you have any questions about them.
Yep.
But I'm big on self-reflection. That's the first one. So what are your interests and what do you enjoy? Are you a people person? Do you want to be outdoors? Do you want to work with animals? Do you prefer technology? Just some self-reflection on what you prefer and where you've been and what you like is really an interesting perspective when you're at this crossroads. The second is your values. What's important to you? And it's simple. When were you happiest or most proud? Think of people you admire and why. Kind of write down those things. But I'm always encouraging people to come up with their 3 to 5 personal values. Pete, we may have touched on this over the 4 or 5 years we've been talking, but if your personal values do not align with the company you go to work for, that's just potential conflict.
Sure.
And you'll wonder why you're just kind of dissatisfied. Well, that's a foundational thing. But if you think about your values and, refine them, it can really help you as you think about this. Third thing, are you the type of person who wants to work alone? Are you the person that wants to work in the team? Are you competitive or cooperative? People don't think about their personality enough in the type of work that they want to do. And, there's all kinds of tests that you can take to kind of look at this and what kind of, what you prefer. But I think it's important to do that kind of assessment because, a lot of people end up working inside when they really should be working outside and vice versa. The fourth is your skills. This is where we all start. What are your hard or soft skills? What education do you need or have? What training would you need to make that change? What do you love to do? What skills do you want to develop? And that can help close the gap. And, of course, every thoughts that maybe you're not in the right spot for the key choice project or even the promotion. Some jobs require travel or evening community commitment. It's really just about deciding what's best for you because you'll find that your first job needs are very different from your last job needs. And that's really just critical for people to do these kind of self-assessments because what everybody shows up with is I just need a job. And then we have to take them through all this anyway to figure out what kind of job fits them. And truth be told, I think people can do this one question at a time and improve their stuff is changing for you. This isn't the fancy stuff, Pete, but it's what really matters, and it gets at the heart of how people can have like the earned life and career they want.
Yeah, sure thing. And, I think a lot of people, especially if you're in a position where you quote unquote need a job, you race to the resume first. You start, making the tweaks and pumping those out and all these things you've talked to that make perfect sense for a full picture of where you are in life kind of are pushed aside when they really could be helpful with the whole process as that first set of things that you do before you start tweaking your resume. Because, again, you have different challenges and needs in your life as time goes on. And to take a look at, who you are and where you fit into a company or a position. If it doesn't, if you don't do it and you get hired, somewhere down the line, if you're not a good fit, it's going to surface and it's going to make your life miserable.
Pete, there are plenty of situations where all was fine, where we just got to get that paycheck going in a hurry.
Yeah.
There are ways to do that don't lock you in forever.
Mm-hmm.
There are always there's seasonal work. I'm in the temporary business. There's opportunities to do things like that, the whole world has been Uberized. There's opportunities to make money. And, that doesn't have to be the kind of commitment thing that interferes with this.
Yeah.
That's why I'm emboldened by this stuff, because there are ways to pay the bills until you get this stuff figured out for yourself.
Sure. I wanted to ask you about this. I've been hearing this buzzword. I guess you'd almost call it a workforce buzzword. And it's called the big stay. Lend me some insight on what that's about and what people should consider with the big stay.
Well, we had the big quit, so
Yeah.
It makes sense that we have the big stay, right? And I just think these are themes that help us understand kind of what's going on. And so the first thing is the job market for office work, which is often called white collar jobs, the dress shirt job, it's kind of falling. That concept of job insecurity is creeping back. You're at the family barbecue and people are talking about whether they're feeling good about their industry or good about their company. That there's this thought that, I don't put my resume out online and get 2 offers by the end of the month. There's this sense that things are changing. So your workers are really actively looking for work, hence the big stay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty profound across every generation that last year about 50% of workers were looking to make a change. This year it's 1 in 3. And that's pretty significant. Now, I always like to give all sides. There are a lot of workers that have thought of my 5 questions, and they have the job they want, the flexibility they need, the challenge they're looking for, and then they see the job market softening. They're just going to kind of stay put. But this is causing all kinds of interesting challenges, especially recent college grads or entry-level roles. Without staff movement, promotion, new assignments, and projects and stuff, that's what keeps business healthy and moving. And frankly, even people moving around, businesses tend to count on at least a percentage of that as just a fact of doing business. So it's gotten really hard on early career people to get that first job. And it's really hard for them, to penetrate this. And that seems to be the biggest outcome of all this.
Yeah. A lot to think about today, Chris, but, the information is always welcome. And I'm sure people listening are glad to have it as well, because, many of the things that you point out, a lot of us don't have exposure to day to day, and it doesn't occur to us to go down some of these avenues you've opened up for us. Before we go, I just want to make quick mention that Placers has, again, made the Inc. 5000 list, 9th consecutive year. And, like we've talked about before, I just think it's a testament to the way you guys go about your business there, making sure that all those things you just talked to are at least partially fulfilled for the people that work for you. So I just want to say a quick congratulations on that.
Hey, I appreciate that greatly. I think it just means that we help a lot of people. We help a lot of job seekers make this transition. And as we often talk about, those that are hiring need lots of help too.
Yeah.
It's as just recognition that we're helping more and more people, which, quite frankly, if that's the authentic goal, this is a great award.
Yep, absolutely. Chris, we will talk again soon. Thanks very much, and have a good rest of the day and the weekend.
Take care.
All right, you as well. Chris Burkhard, Placers Staffing in Newark, here on Delaware.